Hey everybody, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be another review. We're going to be talking about alcohol markers and affordable ones at that. So we'll go over the Ohuhu brand, Touchnew, and Arteza. They all have bullet nibs with chisel nibs. And then the last one that we'll go over is the Master Marker, which is a brush nib. And so we'll get into the details here in the video. The overview for this video, we will start off with talking about the nib barrels, so the ones that have the bullet nib, rather, and we'll do a coloring demo with those three, and then we'll do the Master Marker brush tip overview with a coloring demo and talk along the way. So I've pulled out these three markers first. So I don't have a Touchnew on the screen, but that will come up in just a minute. The Touchnew is not a huge highlight here because it's only in flesh-colored markers, and I'll get more into that in just a minute. But here the two on the left are the bullet nib. You have the Ohuhu and the Arteza, and then on the right is the Master Marker. So there is probably going to be some comments which are totally welcome and I would agree with, that if you can afford the Copic markers, to get those, and you can even build up your stash of those at a very slow rate if you can't really afford them, a lot of them at a time. I can't argue with that, as Copics are a top-rated alcohol marker. I will tell you though that not everyone can or maybe wants to afford them. And so these are the options of other ways to practice those fun techniques and really work on shading and coloring. And you might not even like alcohol markers, and then you just spent a bunch of money that you didn't need to spend. So all things to consider, but we never want to go broke for this hobby. We want to make sure that it's adding joy and not causing us stress. So this is what this video is all about. It's just an alternative for you to see if there's anything that you'll like. So I hope you find this helpful, and as always, please feel free to ask any questions of things maybe I didn't cover in the video. Before we break out the markers individually by brand, I wanted to bring in some color charts. So one thing I will tell you about all of these markers is all three brands. Their numbering system, there's no rhyme, there's no reason. I don't understand who was putting that together or why. So when you get them, disregard them, except to make a note of the numbers. But I want to give you a good example here. So, for example, this is, if you go by the numbering system in order, 1 through all the way, of the Ohuhu brand, this is going to be what the chart looks like, okay? But once I swatched them out and created a color chart, this is actually what they look like, okay? So you can see that this right here on the left, when you actually swatch them out, you have the numbers mean nothing. We're going 12, 5, 3, 10, 15, 1. I don't get it. And so I just don't care about the numbers. To me, they're just a symbol for me to grab and start coloring. But what a drastic difference. Here we have colors that actually match and could coordinate and progress through every hue of the rainbow. And so, yeah, this is, I really wish the company would do that for their own sake. Maybe people are turned off by these markers because of that. I don't know, but they work really well. Spoiler alert, we'll get to that. So I will tell you though, this is the Ohuhu color marker color chart. This one is the Arteza. As you can see, very progressive in colors. Right? And so many different color hues. You have this teal, bright blue, more of an aqua blue. I mean, just really great variety. And then the brush tip markers. And so the same thing, a really great variety of colors, and they work really well together. I have made all three of these charts. So if you would like, if you purchase any one of these brands and you want to reach out to me, I'll send you the chart. This way, all you have to do is dump your markers and start coloring. That's pretty much it. I also, just a couple things about the chart. I put the number above the color because when the number is inside the color, I find that if you're printing on something that's not necessarily alcohol marker friendly, the ink, then you're going to get smudging, like this Spectrum Noir chart, where the writing is inside, and I didn't have an inkjet printer, so I kind of saw a little bit of smudging. I had to let it dry for a while, heat set it. That's not going to be a problem for this because where you're swatching is actually in the blank spot. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy that this work is already done for you guys. If you purchase the Ohuhu, Arteza, or Master Markers, let me know which one. I'll send you the PDF and you can print and go. This is the Ohuhu brand. It comes in an 80 pack of markers. You get this plastic sheet here. If you're coloring on thin paper, you can put this between. So if you're doing like an art journal book, you want to keep everything in one book, you can just put this plastic piece between the sheets, so that'll keep it from bleeding through. And it also comes with a swatched out color sheet. So right here is the swatched out color sheet. So it retails for $39.99 over on Amazon, and you get lots and lots of different colors. So I have, like I said, stops right here. And then because I felt like there wasn't a whole lot of, there are some brown options starting from 91 to 104. This is the brown options. And then you can also, so you can use those for skin tones, and then you can also use some fair skin tones up here as well. But I just wanted to add more skin tones to my stash, so that's why I went down here with this one. And this set is from Touchnew, and I'll put the price up for these as well. Okay, so then we have the Arteza markers, and they come in this fun little case here. This is, you can buckle them up so they don't open up, or there we go, we can open them into their display case, and it could sit up, or you can open up the Velcro on the side and you could kind of flip through them. They give you 10 extra holders here, which is great if you want to add your own personalized things in there, some of your favorites, or if they expand colors, I suppose that could go in there as well. And then you can just bring it right back up. So it's a good little carrying case. I like the case. I think it's nice that it you have some place to put your markers in a nice compartment. Arteza did send me these markers to review. I bought the Ohuhu and the Touchnew markers myself from Amazon. So I'll put the price up here, of course, for the Arteza markers, and I will go over a few attributes before we get into coloring with them. So I'm going to grab up a marker from each one of the categories. Okay, so here we have the Touchnew, we have the Ohuhu, and we have the Everblend art marker. So I was very excited to hear that Arteza came out with an alcohol marker because I'm a huge Arteza fan. I've so far haven't been disappointed with any of their products that they've sent me, so that's been great. So they're all fairly comparable in size, so there's that. They're all white. The Everblend marker is like on a, looks like a triangle. I'm going to show you the 3 bullet nibs. Arteza seems to have a little bit more of a thicker bullet nib. The Ohuhus are smaller. I wouldn't say thicker, longer. I think they're all the same thickness, but Arteza's is a little bit longer and Ohuhu's is smaller. They all have the bullet nib, and there's a line delineator so you can see which side is the bullet, and then they all have a chisel tip, so we'll show the chisel tip. So here we have Arteza, Ohuhu, and Touchnew chisel. So they're all pretty much the same. I think the Touchnew is a tiny bit smaller, but pretty comparable. One attribute of these markers I find is important is how easy do the caps come off, because that's important, especially when you have hand issues. If you have trouble gripping or opening things, that's just, you don't want to be stressed out at the table when you're trying to craft. Touchnews, I have to say, are really not that easy to open. It's frustrating. I have fairly healthy hands, and I found myself kind of having to pull really hard. So it's not an issue if you don't have any issues with your hands. So I just want to be clear about that. But I also want to tell you, if you struggle with grip, then those are a little bit difficult. The Ohuhu markers are super easy to open, so I found that to be great. The Arteza markers, same thing, very simple to open. They do have the number and then a name on there. I wish Arteza would make this a little bit bigger, because in a video it's hard to see, or just stick to the number, because I don't know that both is necessary. I'm not convinced that you need a number and a name, but that's just me. Maybe one or the other, because as long as someone's watching my video and can determine which one to use, that's fine with me. But if they tried to smash everything on there and it's so small, then you can't really tell what I'm using. Ohuhu uses a number system, and Touchnew does the number and the name, but it's a tiny bit bigger. So number, name. All right, so we'll stop there and we'll go over to the voiceover to see how these color. If you've watched any of my recent videos, you will probably have caught that I've been coloring with these a little bit. And so I've been enjoying them a lot. These are the Ohuhu brand. I have to say, this is the first time, what you're seeing here is the very first time I colored with them. It was before I did a proper swatch out. I kind of just grabbed what I thought. I scribbled on a side of a piece of paper on the side, and I just went for it. And it turned out that the coloring turned out really well. So I am just going to share that. If you want to see me color with the Ohuhu, there's a couple other videos that I most recently did, and so you can check that out for more. But I am going to show you a bit in this little segment here. When these came in the mail, I got them because I wanted to try a less expensive brand, and I also wanted to get something for Adia. She's my 9-year-old daughter, and I wanted her to start, she loves to color, so I wanted her to start practicing with blending, shading, all of that, so that she could get way further along than I am, because I've only ever started doing coloring with any kind of pizzazz within the last couple years. So when we got them and we tried them out, she absolutely loved them, as I did. And it went from, these are your markers, to, well, why don't we just keep them in the craft area with mommy's stuff, and then we can share them. So she was keen on that, because I really like them, so I plan on using them. I'm switching over to the Touchnew now. I'll tell you a little bit about the Touchnew. After I got them, I was a little bit disappointed in them, to be honest. I thought it was a much wider variety of colors. If you look at the swatch in the very beginning of the video, at the bottom, there's so many of the same light kind of color. So I was really bummed about that. I thought a 24 pack of browns and skin tones that'll go from the lightest to the darkest skin tone, and it's not the case. And so anyway, I would not recommend the Touchnew. They're not, if you're going to buy a set from a different, either the Arteza or the Master Markers or the Ohuhu, you're going to probably get enough. Or I would recommend the Copic skin tone, because that kind of locks you in. The problem with the Copic skin tone is it does not have dark enough skin tones. So there's that. So you just kind of have to figure out what you're looking for. We're moving into the other ones in just a minute, but here's the finish. I wanted to show a variation of color. And so this is, except for the one I just showed, all others are Ohuhu markers. I think they work wonderfully. I am on Nina 80-pound solar white cardstock with Memento Tuxedo black ink, so nothing smears. And now I've moved into the Arteza brand. I was really happy with a lot of things about the Arteza markers. One was the feel of the marker. I didn't think I would like the triangle. I do like the triangle. I really like how smooth they went down on the paper, and they weren't quite as tiny a bullet nib as the Ohuhu, although the Ohuhu chisel is a little smoother than most chisels, so I was using that side a lot to color. But the Arteza markers go down really nicely, really smooth, especially on this paper. I found them that once I swatched those out as well and got all my colors worked out, I thought that the color progression and the color blend was really good. You can see so far the red, the yellow, and the green are just rocking it. I was really impressed with that. And then this is the blue again. Loved the quality. The things I wish Arteza would do a little bit more, put a little bit more browns in the set, expand the set a little bit, few more grays, warm grays potentially. I think a 60 set is really just kind of small. for this kind of coloring, and so that would be my recommendation for Arteza, and I will send back the feedback to them, of course, because I feel like it's a very good quality marker. I'm getting awesome results. So that's how I feel about the Arteza. Next, we're going to move into the master marker. Okay, so these are the master markers. This is the 160 set. I bought both of them because, not because I have full set syndrome, that's what I'm telling myself, but because I thought if I'm going to get a real taste of the color scheme of these, and the colors included, I needed to get them all. So master markers, you can get set A and set B. It is exceedingly less expensive to get them together, and I think that is probably why the company did it. But yeah, so I'll put on the screen how much they cost. So I got the set. The reason that I got this set was because they are a brush nib. Hold on, these birds, they're talking to me this morning. Okay, I closed the window, but you can probably still hear them. Anyway, so I got them because they're a brush nib, and in the crafting community, we are looking for brush nibs that we can afford. And so, you know, I looked around and saw some reviews on these and thought, well, let me try them. We'll see how it goes. So this is the marker, and you have, so right off the bat, I noticed that there's no indicator of which side is which. So that's a disappointment for me. Okay, so we have the chisel tip here. Okay, and then we have, which, as I'm opening them, very easy to take off the caps. So that's important. Then you have the brush nib. I wanted to bring in a Copic just for comparison of the size of the brush nib, and they look pretty much the same. I also wanted to test the flexibility between the two markers. The Copic is more firm. The master marker is softer and more flexible. Now, when you're doing the feathering technique, you're going to have to account for, if you're an avid Copic user, there's a difference, a learning curve, as there is for me because I never use brush markers. But you're going to have to be a little softer with the feathering technique to get it. It's very similar to the Copic. So that was the only difference I saw there. Looking at the barrel here, we're back to the barrel. Again, I wanted to point out one of my cons was that there's no indicator. Also, I'm just kind of showing you the barrel here as I talk, but I have something that could fix the indicator. I'm probably just going to put a piece of washi tape around the end that with the brush nib. And then also another thing about these markers is you cannot buy them individually. You have to buy them as a set. So that could be a downer for folks too. So I wanted to point that out. There is no sellable refill for these markers. However, I just literally stopped this video and used my tweezers and pulled out the brush nib on the master marker, and it can come out. So there's nothing to say that I cannot fill that bad boy up with some alcohol ink from any of the other companies that do have refills. So that's not going to stop me, because for the price, I'm super pleased with that. All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty of these markers. The pros are the cost. I think that is a huge pro. 87 cents a marker. Incredible. So with that, and that's if you buy the set A and B together with the 160 colors, which is pretty much going to cover the gamut. Great variety of color choices. I felt like the progression was really done really well. Good quality of marker, blends really well, soft, and yeah, so I'm really happy with the quality. The cons, they're cheaper to buy the whole set, which could be a con because if you only want to buy one at a time, you're kind of losing out on $40. Essentially, you could be saving if you decide to get the set B later. Also, you can't buy them individually, and the company doesn't sell re-inkers, but as I stated before, that's not stopping me. And there's no brush side indicator. All of those cons I can overlook for myself. This is a personal preference choice of what you want to do. We're going to get into the coloring here in just a second. So that's all personal preference for you. The one con that I couldn't look past is if the marker was trash. Obviously, that's something that I'm just not going to. But when as you have probably seen in some of my review videos, when I'm on the hunt to save save money and get a good deal, there's something usually that I have to give up, whether it's a brand name or, you know, the organization of the markers was hideous when I opened them. To be honest, too, I want to apologize for not being able to tell you or show you which was in set A and which was in set B, because we got them. Adia opened up the box and dumped all the markers on the ground by my direction, but because she was going to put them in color order for me. And so it wasn't until much later where I was like, oh, I probably should have noted. So I'll see if Amazon has that listed. And so I can't tell you if buying one set is sufficient to get you started. I really can't. I don't know. So yeah, there's that. I do apologize for that. But anyway, those cons are, you know, the organization of the markers, which we have now rectified with the color chart, and then the indicator on the brush nib, which I can fix that. Also, it literally took me probably 1.2 seconds to look at the little picture on it, because it does have a brush picture and a chisel picture. I didn't mention that, so it does have the picture. You don't have to open up the cap to see which side is which. It's just you have to look for it, whereas the little line indicator is a lot easier to see. So, all right, I am coloring now with these markers, and I tried to pick a variety of colors here. I could have gone back to my drawing board and colored something different, but I wanted to show you my very first time using these markers, because like with any medium you pick up, you're going to have to figure out how to use it best for yourself. So there's pressure, there's how the marker comes out. Is it juicy? These markers are very juicy. And so there's a couple things that you'll see here. You can see in the star on the right, there's bleeding outside the line. And I kept that in there because I wanted you to see that that could happen. My Spectrum Noirs were guilty of that, and I think most alcohol markers are. If you're too close to the line and you're too saturated, it's going to bleed. And so, again, pressure. I thought the T on the left-hand side, not the upper T, but the T on the left lower, the big jar, I've thought that came out exactly how I wanted it to come out. I've got bleeding on the cherry Kool-Aid here, but that's okay. I left that in, and I just wanted to kind of show you some of those things. The tea glass, which is meant to be tea, up on the upper left-hand, the little cup, those colors, that was the first thing I put down on the paper, and they didn't, I used too similar of colors. And so my whole point here is you're going to have to play with your markers and figure it out. And I didn't have the color chart done at the time of doing this video. So that was a challenge for me. Once I did that, it was like gravy, like it's all good to go. So that's it. That will do it for the full review of these affordable alternative options for alcohol markers. If you are shying away from alcohol markers because you don't know if you'll like it and you don't want to spend the money, I would highly recommend starting with something like the Ohuhu or the Arteza. But if you want to jump full throttle in, brush markers are a very popular choice. I really enjoy them. The only thing I have to say that I'm sorry for in this video is that I wish I could have eliminated one of these options completely for you so that you could make the choice much easier. But I couldn't do that. I liked all three of them really well. So that'll do it. Please let me know if you have any questions whatsoever in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Also, your opinions on these markers, if you own them, or any other alcohol brand markers that you own, please feel free to share. We always learn so much from the comment section. And I'll link what was used in the video below in the description. And we will see you all in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.